My name is David Daniel Boll, and these are the headlines for Friday, the 30th of January, 2009. Father suicidal after daughter's bridge death. He probably feels responsible as he's the one who threw her off the bridge. Reese denies deal to promote Robertson. Ouch! Light pole foils inmates' escape. Which state has Australia's deadliest hospitals? Police pursuit ends in fiery crash. Judge refuses Obama's call to suspend Guantanamo trial. Aussie tourism jobs in the firing line. ATM bandits hit Drummoyne. Discharged hospital patient dies next day. And in comments from Alan Jones, Woolworth's win is your loss, with supermarket giant Woolworths somehow posting an 8.8% increase in sales during an unprecedented economic crisis. It is clear that you, the consumer, are losing out, writes Alan Jones. Tax cuts, not panic, the solution to economic crisis. With economists and governments all too willing to spread doom and gloom, Australians could do well to ignore them and realise that things will recover, writes Alan Jones. From Tim Blair, we have science screaming. Power duo Al Gore and John Kerry take their global warming show to snowbound Washington, D.C. The science is screaming at us, said Kerry, who, like Gore, is a former Democrat presidential candidate. Kerry also has his own tome on the threat of global warming. To the naysayers and the deniers out there, let me make it clear that the little snow in Washington does nothing to diminish the reality of the crisis that we face, Kerry said. Note that science is now a proper noun, like Jesus. From Andrew Bolt. Importing tension. It seems our urban chicksters aren't so comfortable with multiculturalism after all. The trendy inner-city suburbs of Sydney are full of gloomy and miserable people, and they have been that way since the economic turmoil began. The Australian Unity Wellbeing Index report, compiled by Bob Cummins, Professor of Psychology at Deakin University, shows the combination of high-density living, high numbers of young people, and high rates of immigrants in a community can be a recipe for disaffection. When people don't know the people living around them, it gives rise to bad thoughts, Professor Cummins said. They don't feel safe. The survey shows lower rates of well-being in communities where more than 40% of residents were born overseas. This finding was likely to reflect the anxiety about strangers felt by the Australian-born in the area, who were more likely to be interviewed for the survey, Professor Cummins said, rather than the feelings of the immigrants. I suspect that in some areas of Australia, multiculturalism and immigration have been pushed close to their limits, and that no amount of earnest finger-wagging will stop tensions rising. Interesting that suburbs with big green votes tend to also be unhappier than non-green ones. Bihar actually tells a joke. Larry King interviews Joy Bihar, a comedian and panelist on The View. King: okay, is this administration going to be hard for the comics to have fun with? Bihar: yes, and all I can say is thank you for Joe Biden, because he's going to always give us some laughs. He'll say something crazy and out there, and it'll be fun. And Sarah Palin, we can always rely on her to come back and give us some material. But it really is not going to be easy to make fun of Obama, because they're kind of really perfect, aren't they? Bill O'Reilly already had her pinned, even though her body language alone screamed plenty. How the media stick to its story. Barack Obama trying to walk through a window isn't news because he's a genius. George Bush trying to walk through a locked door is huge news because he's, a moron. Same story when clever Obama merely repeats what dumb Bush said already. Models, monstered. Professor J. Scott Armstrong, co-founder of the International Journal of Forecasting, says there are 8 reasons not to trust the IPCC models that forecast runaway warming. They are: 1. No scientific forecast of the changes in the Earth's climate. 2. Improper peer review process. 3. Complexity and uncertainty of climate render expert opinions invalid for forecasting. 4. Forecasters are needed for the effects of climate change. 5. Forecasts are needed of the costs and benefit of alternative actions that might be taken to combat climate change. 6. To justify using a climate forecasting model, one would need to test it against a relevant naive model. 7. The climate system is stable. 8. Be conservative and avoid the precautionary principle. So endangered that they're everywhere. Sometimes Greens will stretch exactly the wrong truth. Australian Greens leader Bob Brown and environmentalist groups have called for a halt to logging in Victoria's East Gippsland area after the discovery of several endangered species. Environment East Gippsland spokeswoman Jill Redwood said the robust spiny crayfish, endangered sooty and powerful owls and a large population of greater gliders were discovered at the weekend. The place is literally teeming with endangered species, Miss Redwood said. Gore mocked. The Washington Post's Donna Milbank watches New Testament prophet Al Gore deliver his latest apocalyptic sermon to the U.S. Senate. The lawmakers gazed in awe at the figure before them. The Goracle had seen the future, and he had come to tell them about it. What the Goracle saw in the future was not good. Temperature changes that would bring a screeching halt to human civilization and threaten the fabric of life everywhere on the earth. And this is within this century if we don't change. Milbank is astonished no one in the room is laughing at this guy. Once Al Gore was a mere vice president, but now he is a Nobel laureate and climate change prophet. He repeats phrases such as unified national smart grid, the way he once did no controlling legal authority. And the ridicule has been replaced by worship, even by his political foes. So from where comes this awe for Gore? The Goracle's power seems to come from his ability to scare the bejesus out of people. Melbourne is wrecked and full. Excuse me if I sound cross. Didn't get much sleep after the power to my home and air conditioner was cut 3 times. Oops, make that now 4. And last night I counted all the plants I lost because the government can't get me through enough water either. 13 so far, actually, plus 2 lawns, not to mention the grass of the park down the end of our street. No power, little water, and the radio just now was warning that dozens more trains were being cancelled too. So yes, I'm tired and cranky, but aren't you also angry and enraged that our great city has been brought so low by such mammoth incompetence? Fact is, Victoria is now paying the price for being too green, blind, and thick to build basic stuff for a population we let grow far too fast. Melburnians in particular this week suffered for it. Suffer, Andrew, you always vote for the ALP anyway. Rudd, splashing cash we'll need later. Kevin Rudd is planning another stimulus package to stop the economy from tipping into a hole. Hand out another few billion, build more public housing, cut taxes a bit, and the crash will keep the tills kirching and factories whirring. That's the theory, but here's the reality. All the Prime Minister's spending so far, not least last month's $8 billion of handouts, has failed. In fact, Rudd has already blown almost our entire surplus on rescue plans without managing to stop the economy from breaking hard. So, he is merely squandering billions that we'll need later. After all, it's now clear this slowdown or recession may last as long as 3 years. Westpac this week predicted a 0.7% contraction this year with sluggish growth in 2010.